Hello there. Welcome to another edition of the Mixtape Podcast, the podcast dedicated to examining film from a screenplay writer's perspective. I'm your host for this week. My name is Marcelo Inestrosa, joined as always by my fellow co host and the woman that makes me bear a psychological cross for reasons, Dean Stark. And on today's edition of the show, we'll be talking about the 1973 film Soylent Green. So, as we do every week, I will turn the show over to Dean so she can start to take us down a timeline of this interesting film.
It's weird because a lot of people don't even know what the fuck this movie is. And I'm like, what? It's like such a cult movie. I don't know. Maybe it's like a horror thing. I don't know. But it's such a cult movie. So Soylent Green, 1973, directed by Richard Fleischer. Can't pronounce the name. Sorry. Screenplay by Stanley R. Greenberg. A nightmarish, futuristic... Fuck, let's just start that again. Let's just fucking take two. A nightmarish, futuristic fantasy about the controlling power of big corporations and an innocent cop who stumbles on the truth. This movie could be a parallel of what the world is going through now. You know what? I've seen this movie before, and when I watched it again, I was like, God damn, that could happen. Like, honestly, it's not far off that this could fucking happen, right? And I know some people who have seen this movie goes, that would never happen. It's like, yeah, but some of the shit that's gone down in the world you think wouldn't happen, and it happened. So this movie, I'm like, you know what? It could fucking, obviously it's set in 2022 and we're past that, but like, I don't know. I feel like in the future it could fucking happen. So I really like the opening scene of this movie because it's just photographs. And I think it's like a timeline of photographs from the 1900s till now, which is basically 2022, but they filmed it in 1973, so it doesn't look like 2022, but it's supposed to be 2022. So it's 1973, but it's 2022. And I like it because it goes through the industrial age, the progression of the world, cars, how cars have changed, how fashion has changed, steam engines, like all that stuff, which I found really cool. And it brings you up to the point that we are now in the movie, which is basically not very good. I mean, it comes up on the screen. The year is 2022. We're in New York City, which is my favorite city, by the way. And the population is 40 million. Now, just to give everybody a gauge, right now, the population in New York is 18 million. So you can imagine New York with 22 million more people in it. I mean, it's just, and it looks overcrowded. It looks poor. People are sleeping on staircases. People are sleeping in the streets, in their cars. Their cars don't work. They're dressed in rags. Like, it's just, everybody's poor as shit. Nobody cares. Government doesn't care. They're scrounging. Like, you can just in that opening shot when it says 2022 New York City, I mean, you can see this is what the world has come to. This is like, poor as shit. So what did you think just of that, like the pictures and of the opening scene and stuff like that? What do you think of that?
I thought the opening scene of this movie was very, very effective because from the get, the director does a great job of immersing you in this post-apocalyptic world where food is scarce, the government doesn't give a shit, like you said, and overpopulation is at an all-time high level. This movie was really, really effective for me. And it also scared the ever-loving shit out of me because, like you said, when people watch this movie who don't necessarily watch it with their brain on, this could actually possibly happen because we are getting to a point in our society where at some point overpopulation is going to become a problem. And if overpopulation truly becomes a problem, what is to say that our government wouldn't do, or my government, not your government, or my government wouldn't come up with a set of laws to do certain things to sort of chop the population in half, not because they want to, but because they have to. So this movie, although entertaining and fun to watch, it kind of scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, to be honest, I think my government would do it before your government. And I say this in the most lighthearted way possible, because I do love my people, Australians are more likely to fall in line than Americans. Americans kind of have that fighting spirit. Well, they'll fight back against something that they don't like. They've got balls, basically. Americans have got balls. Australians are more go with the flow. So I think Australians are more likely to fall into line than Americans are. I mean, I could be wrong.
The one thing that I found really interesting, and I have to acknowledge that this movie was made in the 70s, the wardrobe was very colorful and it popped, and I really liked that. But to me, it was very, very sort of off putting to see an officer of the law in random street clothes. I'm like, uh, you're a cop and you're in random street clothes. But as the film goes on, I would think if you're a cop, the government would give you certain benefits for being a person of the law. But in this movie, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you do a job for the government or not, you have the clothes that you have, and that's the clothes that you have to work in. So I also found that to be very, very interesting to show you even even a member that even a person that is a part of the government is treated as a lesser person to an extent.
Yeah, I found that interesting too. Because our lead character, Charlton Heston, he is a detective, and the cops are just not respected. The cops are as poor as everybody else. I mean, he even says later on, like, the only reason he does it is because of the small amount of money that he gets to allow him to have this, like, this roof over his head that's basically lives in a shoebox, because nobody takes the law seriously anyway. Nobody abides by rules or cops or anything like that. But I found this interesting. So while we're looking at the streets of New York and it's overpopulated, people are sleeping in the streets, there's a speaker system. And this voice comes over the speaker system. The streets are prohibited to non-permits in 1 hour. And that gave me chills, because that happened here during the last 2 years. And I was like, fuck. Like, that's what I mean about this movie. It's not far off from what the government can do to its people. And a lot of other countries around the world did actually experience this. And it's like, oh, that's, and you see people scattering to go inside. Like, if you don't hold a permit, you can't go outside. Like, that's fucking scary as shit. So anyway, we get an introduction to Detective Thorne, which is Charlton Heston. And he lives in a shoebox. It's just got shit everywhere. It looks hot. The one thing that I did enjoy with this movie is that he keeps talking about how hot it is. He keeps talking about it's 80, 90 degrees, which in Celsius is about between like 30 and 40 degrees Celsius. But I wanted to ask you what you thought about this. In every single scene, he looks sweaty. It looks like everybody is hot. It looks like you go outside and it's just hot. In every single scene, he's like got sweat, and everybody has sweat all over them, which I thought was a really nice show don't tell kind of thing.
I noticed that too, and I really thought that was a great job done by the production designer or the makeup department in this movie to keep up that continuity through all the scenes in the movie, because a lot of movies, a lot of post-apocalyptic movies do things like that. Like they'll put artificial sweat on actors, but a lot of big movies like that forget to keep up the continuity from scene to scene. So it was very impressive to me that the people working on this movie cared that much to keep the continuity of him constantly having sweat on his body in some fashion as he went through the movie. So I really, really enjoyed that.
Yep. So the next, we've got an introduction to Detective Thorne, and we've got exposition now, because he gets up. The first thing he does is he turns on the TV. I like this exposition. It's information that the audience need to know, but it's not in your face. It's not someone standing there going, oh, blah, 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 blah. It's just randomly turning on the television. And when he turns it on, there is a news broadcaster, and he's talking about all the Soylents, Soylent Red, Soylent Yellow, which he explains are food alternatives. And then there's Soylent Green, which is like the most popular out of all the Soylents. Now, Soylent Red, Yellow, and Green, they're basically square pellets of food alternatives. And, he says Soylent Green is made out of plankton from the oceans. It's the most popular. It's the one they keep running out on. And don't forget, Tuesday is Soylent Green Day. So Tuesdays are the days that people can go and get. So that's when it's available. That's how messed up the whole world is. It's like only on Tuesdays can you get Soylent Green. Now, the reason that there are all these food alternatives is because scientists basically poisoned a lot of the ocean, poisoned the soil, so they can't grow anything. Farmers can't farm anything. There's no fish, there's no meat, there's nothing. So scientists basically destroyed food sources, everything that people eat. And so they have to eat this Soylent stuff. And the Soylent company is a government company. So the government is making these Soylent red, yellow, and green alternatives for people to eat, which I thought was interesting. So that's all set up. That's all beautiful. So anyway, Soylent Green, it's popular. It's so popular. It's in short supply. And yeah, so what did you think about the exposition on the TV, telling us this is what's going on?
I really thought the exposition on the TV was extremely effective because, like you said, if you're going to do exposition, there are a couple ways not to do it. If you need to do exposition, try not to force it down your audience's throat. But a clever way to do exposition is to do exposition, but put it in the background. Have the exposition going on in the background, and in the front, have your actors doing something else or carrying on the conversation with the exposition quietly in the background. And the way that they did it in this movie was fantastic. It was perfect because the exposition was there, but you had other stuff to focus on as well if you weren't necessarily that intrigued with hearing the news report on the TV that was running while Charlton Heston was shaving himself. I really like the fact that in this movie, the scientists killed the planet. Because normally, when scientists are depicted in post-apocalyptic stories, they try to do something good but end up doing something awful. And in this movie, it feels like they try to do something awful just to do something awful. And it's their fault. It's their fault that the planet is the way it is. Also, I thought it was a very, very cool, interesting continuity thing. Every time you went outside, the camera was tinted green. So I'm like, oh, that's really cool. To sort of signify how fucked up the ozone layer was. Every time we were outside, the
it looked like pollution.
The image was green. It looked like pollution. It looked like this. It was gross. So I really like I really enjoy some of the choices that the writer and the director made in this film. I really do.
Yeah, I liked it too. I thought that they did really well. So Charlton Heston's character, Detective Thorne, he's getting ready. And like Marcelo said, the TV's on in the background, so you can listen to it or not listen to it. Or you can watch Charlton Heston. And what he's doing is he's shaving and then he's wiping his face and then he's got a rag and he's wiping himself. And you realize, oh my God, he doesn't have a shower and he doesn't have running water. It's like, wait, what? Like, people are poor, but it's like, wait, they don't have running water? And he lives with a flatmate named Sol, and he's an old guy, and he's a guy that he used to work with at the precinct. And he's kind of the brains. So Thorne will come in and tell him something, and this guy's like the researcher. He'll go research stuff and sort of help him out on cases. And then the electricity starts to go out, and Sol jumps on a bike and starts pedaling, and then the electricity comes back on, and you're like, oh my fucking God, what? So you have to pedal for electricity and you have no running water like that? Again, showing us how derelict and how far the world has gone and not telling us. Like, everything you need to know is kind of enveloped about how poor they are. And he's, like Marcelo said, he's a police officer. Shouldn't he have perks? Shouldn't he have government perks? No, he doesn't. Everybody is the same. If you don't have money, and we'll see how the other half live in a second. If you don't have money, doesn't matter what job you have, you're nothing. You're basically like a piece of shit.
I really loved that scene where when the light bulb starts flickering in their apartment, Saul gets up from the table and he goes over to the bike and he starts pedaling for electricity. I just love that image of seeing this poor old guy have to pedal for electricity. I thought it was a great way that the director visually showed the audience, like you said, how fucked up this world is and how ass backwards it is. It was just a really striking image. I thought. I mean, not the worst image that I saw in this movie. We're gonna get to that later on, but for me, for some reason, that image really hit me when it showed up.
Yeah, it really just showed how like messed up everything is. So we're moving on. We get a shot of outside, and again, you see homeless people. Like when I say everywhere, it's not like you walk down the street now and there's like maybe one or two people. No, they're fucking everywhere on the street. Like you can't walk down a street without like tripping over someone. There's 40 million people in like this fucking New York, right? It's dirty, it's disgusting, and then you see this guy, and he sees another guy that's got glasses on and he's got a suitcase, and they get into a car. And this guy opens his briefcase and he hands him at first I thought it was a crowbar, because it looks like it, but it's actually a tool carpenters use to get carpets up. Because I was like, is that a crowbar? And I had to research it. I was like, oh, okay. But it looks like a crowbar. It's got that hook thing on the end. And then it goes to the next scene and you're like, what the fuck? Does that have any relevance to anything?
It's actually, yeah, it's actually a prying tool to get carpets up. It's actually the tool that the Riddler used to kill the congressman in the opening scene of the Batman. It's a much more older version of that tool.
Right. Exactly. So there's that little scene, and it does come back. That's kind of like a setup to a scene that comes later. But the next scene I really like. So now we get to see how the other half live, how the people that have money live. And it is a drastic difference to the world that we've seen. These are the rich people. These people live in penthouses. They've got aircon. They've got running water. They've got hot water. They've got food. They've got beautiful couches to sit on. They've got beds, sheets, silk pillowcases. Like they've got everything that you could ever fucking want. Which I thought was, yeah.
And they have hookers.
And yes, they have hookers. So, and we meet one right now.
Yeah. I just want to say something.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'll save it until you ask me what I thought about that. Go ahead. I'm going to save it. Go ahead.
All right. So now we meet Shirl, and she's playing like an arcade game in this beautiful rich apartment. It's like a loft kind of, and it's spacious and it's clean and blah blah. And she's talking to an older man, and you don't know who he is, you don't know who she is, but you know they're in kind of like a relationship because she's like, thank you for buying me this. Is there anything I can do for you? She kind of looks at him with like sexy eyes, and you're like, oh, okay, are they married? Are they like, you kind of don't know what's going on. But what we find out is Shirl is in the rich people's apartment blocks. When men move in, there's a woman living there, which is Shirl. In every apartment, there's a woman, and they're kind of like hookers, / maids / butlers. They do everything the men ask them to do, and the reason they do this is because the perk they get is basically living the luxurious life. Otherwise, they'd be poor. So I get it, because I wouldn't want to live how Detective Thorne is living. So I do understand. I wouldn't necessarily call it prostitution. It's a job. Like, it's a living. It's like the men come in, they marry them, and they make them food, they make the bed, they clean, they cook, they do the sexual thing as well, but they do everything, and they do it because they don't want to live like shitty lifestyles, which if I was in that situation, I would probably do the same thing. I need running water. I don't know about anyone else. I need a shower. I need a fucking toilet. I couldn't live without a toilet. I'd be like, listen, I'll bang anyone you want me to bang. Just give me a fucking toilet and a shower. That's all I ask for.
Yeah. Look, I really am a supporter of hey, if you want to be a sex worker, be a sex worker. I support women who want to do that. But the thing that really pissed me off about this scene is that the guy that she's with and several guys throughout the movie refer to her as furniture. And I'm like, motherfucker, this woman is a human being who's trying to take care of you. She's trying to do a job, and you refer to her as fucking furniture? You motherfucker. Oh, that pissed me off so much.
So disrespectful. So
But
disrespectful.
but you did mention, because these people have money, they can get all the amenities that they want. They can get running water, they can get alcohol, they can get food, they can get anything. So it really, really sort of scared the shit out of me that this government in this movie still operates by the creed that our world kind of operates by. And
Yeah.
it's basically this: if you have money and if you have connections, you can get anything you want, and also you
Yep.
can break all the rules.
Yep. Yep.
And I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that the system in this movie is broken and it's not fair,
Yeah.
because that's the way that it would be if this
Yeah.
actually went down.
That's the way it is. It's not fair. It's just not as intense as it is in the movie.
Yet.
Yeah, no, it's not as bad, but it is like that now. So anyway, there's a very tall man that walks in, and he's the bodyguard. We don't know who he's the bodyguard of. We don't know why these people need bodyguards yet, but he takes Shirl to basically get food. And I love this scene because, again, it's showing, not telling. So they go, it's not even a supermarket. It kind of looks like if you're in a jail and you're going to get like commissary or something. Like, that's kind of what it looks like. And so Shirl goes...
It looks like an evidence locker.
Yeah. It looks like an evidence locker. So she goes to get food, and the guy puts the food that she gets on the table, and he says, that's $279. And you're like, what? And I actually paused it because I'm like, wait, what is $279? So check this out. This is how bad it is. And I love it because it just shows everything. For like 5 things, right? 1 lettuce, 2 tomatoes, a leek, 3 jars of who knows what. $279. Like, literally, that's it. And I was like, fuck. So you can see why people are poor. They can't afford food. They can't afford, like, it's just, it's amazing. And then she says, did you get it? Did you get it? And he's like, yeah, of course I got it. And so he takes her around the back, and he opens like a fridge, and you see a big like slice of steak. And he's like, look at that. And you're like, and again, it's showing you, oh my God, there's no animals. Like beef is rare. Nobody eats beef. Beef is like, what is like fucking caviar. Like, and you're like, oh my God. Like, can you imagine? Because obviously when you go to the supermarket, everything's there. You can buy beef, you can buy chicken, you can buy lettuce, whatever. But like living like that, like, oh my God, it's just, but I really like that scene. What did you think about that scene and how it kind of pushed the story forward and the information that it gave us?
I thought that scene was very, very wonderful, because if you're sitting at home watching this movie and you still don't really understand how bad it is, this scene of this young woman going to essentially a police locker to get portions of food is fascinating, because the other thing that this scene does is it really drives home. I'm trying to figure out how to say this. This scene really drives home the fact that there is a food shortage for a particular reason. It also lays a hat on the ground as to the reason why the food is so expensive. When we get to the end of the movie, that makes a lot of sense. So I thought that this scene, on the surface, seemed unimportant, but later on, this scene uh, uh, played so had so much more importance when you find out why the government is making these foods so expensive, and why
Yeah.
and why it's so hard for them to generate these supplements, or so they say.
Yeah.
But I thought the scene was just great.
Yeah, because it just shows you, it's like, fuck, like, is that what the world's going to get to, where it's like lettuce and like 2 tomatoes is like $200? Like, Jesus Christ. I mean, it's getting that way. I'll tell you, I went to get, I think it was a fucking peach or a nectarine. I think I picked up 2. I didn't look at the price because, like, it's fucking fruit, right? 2 nectarines. No, was it peaches? Who fucking knows? Let's just say they're peaches. I put them on the counter, and she's like, yeah, that's $12. I'm like, for what? Like, there was $6 each. Like, fucking hell. Like, unbelievable. And I'm like, fuck, this is Soylent Green shit. Like, that's what it's getting to. But anyway, so the next scene, we see the guy with the crowbar again. And he basically breaks into the rich girl's apartment loft, and the old guy's sitting there. I think he's like sipping whiskey, and he walks in with the crowbar, and the old guy it's like he knows what's going on. He doesn't try to run or anything. He just sits there like he knew it was fucking coming. And the guy with the crowbar says, they wanted me to tell you you've become unreliable and they can't risk having a catastrophe. And so then the old guy just like knows he's just not even going to try to fucking defend himself. He knows he can't run. There's no way he can run. And then the guy, hits him over the head, kills the old guy. And again, you're sitting there like, okay. You don't even know who this old guy is. You find out later, but you don't know who he is. And so you're like, what the fuck is this movie? So now they call in Detective Thorne. So he comes into it, and they call him to investigate the murder. And I think this scene is so funny because he's so unprofessional. But it's kind of like, take what you can fucking get. So he's walking around this rich loft. And he
takes everything.
He takes everything. He's like opening the fridge, eating the food. And he's like, do you have alcohol? And the bodyguard's there, like, and he goes, oh fuck, he starts drinking the alcohol. And you're like, oh my god, this guy's unprofessional. And then he goes into the bathroom and he turns on the tap, and his face is just like, oh my god, you have running water? Like, it's such a luxury to have running water. And then he just starts he's like, fuck this soap. And then what he does is he goes into the bedroom, he takes a pillowcase off a pillow, and he starts like pillaging all the shit. He starts putting all this shit in the pillowcase to steal it because he's poor. And the thing is, the bodyguard sees this. He don't care because they don't care. So I thought that was kind of funny. But you know what? If you live how the bodyguard, how Detective Thorne is living, you'd kind of like do the same shit too. And so, he steals the food. Like, he steals the food that they just brought, the beef, the lettuce, the tomatoes. I think there was like an apple that he took as well. Like, he just picks up everything and fucking just like pillages it, which I thought was funny. So there's like guys in black that come in that like cover the body and take the body, and they ask, I think it's Detective Thorne, where are you taking the body? And the guys say, outside the city to the waste disposal plant. And then you're like, oh, okay, that seems a bit like weird, like there's no burials or anything, but you don't still quite know what's going on. And then Detective Thorne goes, hey, can I get a lift home? And the guys are like, yeah, sure. And the next shot is him jumping off of a literal garbage truck and walking to his apartment. And you're like, oh my. And then right again, showing, not telling, it's like, wait, these were the guys that just picked up the body. He's asked to get a lift home. Oh my god, they're putting bodies in a garbage truck? Like, fuck. That's really fucking fucked and fucking disturbing, if I might add.
Yeah, no, I actually, first of all, when Charlton Heston shows up to the rich guy's apartment and starts pillaging everything, I'm like, I really had a problem with that for like 30 seconds. But then I was like, you know what? This guy lives in squalor. Everybody's fucked. You go ahead. You take everything you can. And also, when the guy with the crowbar comes in to kill the old man, I'm like, why would he do that? Unless this old guy knew something about the way that the government was run. And then I got to thinking. And then when the coroner guys come in, who for some reason are wearing nothing but black and fucking ski masks, I'm like, that's strange. And then when Charlton Heston asks them, where are you taking the body, and they go, we're taking the body to a waste disposal plant, and I'm like, wait a minute, what if they? And right there, I had a theory, and I was like, what if? And I was like, well. And,
don't tell us yet.
I'm not gonna say that, but that scene was very, very effective to me because in that scene, I started to work things out in my head, and I was like, what if this was what's happening here? And I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
this is fascinating.
isn't it?
Also, oh yeah. Also, I would like to point out when Charlton Heston comes back home,
Mm.
he literally has to climb over people that
Yeah,
are sleeping on the stairs.
yeah,
And every time he does this, I'm like, how in the fuck does he not step on someone?
yeah. I know,
I'm like, because they're everywhere.
I
And
know.
the other cool thing is, I believe at the top of the stairs is a guy with a gun. And
Mm.
I'm like, what the holy fuck is going? What has happened to civilization? It's just, this movie is terrifying, but it's so fascinating at the same time.
Yeah, I know. I know. I thought so too. So yeah, he gets home. He has to like climb over people, and then he's the old guy's there. His flatmate's there, and he's like, "Oh, look at what I got." And so he starts pulling out paper, and the old guy's like, "Oh my fucking god, paper!" And then you go, "Wait a minute, what? They don't have." And every time you learn something new, you're like, "Oh my god, they don't have paper!" And he pulls out pencils, and he's like, "Oh my god, pencils! What? I could write something!" And I was like, "Oh, fuck's sake!" And then he pulls out soap. He goes, "Look at this! I got soap!" And he's like, "What?" And then he pulls out the food, and he's like, "Look at it!" And he shows him the meat and like Sol, because I really like Sol because Sol is old enough to remember what the world used to be like. And he keeps trying to tell Detective Thorne, you don't understand what it used to be like. Everyone had run. Basically, he's explaining what the world is now. Everyone had running water. You could go to the supermarket and just get whatever the fuck you want. And Thorne doesn't get it because that's not what the world. And he keeps saying to him, "Yeah, sure, Sol." And he goes, "No, this is what the world is." And he's like, "I fucking cannot live in this world. Like, this is bullshit because I know what the world used to be like." And so Sol just like went off his fucking nanas when he saw the beef and he saw all the food. He's like, "Fuck, I'm gonna cook something," which was just the elation on his face was awesome. Anything you want to say before I move on to the next scene?
No, that scene was extremely effective because all throughout the movie, Saul is like one step away from losing it. So I really appreciated that in this one scene, he was able to really illustrate to Charlton Heston's character. Look, in my day, like us, if we were hungry, we just had to go to the supermarket. And I don't I thought this scene was really effective because by Charlton Heston's character bringing all that food, he could really understand. Like, I don't think Charlton Heston really understood what Saul was talking about until he got to a certain point in the movie. So I like that this scene really sort of showed him how the world used to be, and
Yeah,
really gave him a point of reference into saying that maybe Saul isn't really crazy.
yeah, yeah. Which was a beautiful scene, by the way. At the end, we'll get to it. So now we're at the police station, and Thorne walks in. And when he walks in, it kind of looks like the DMV. Like, it's like packed with people, like talking to police. Like, it looks gross. It just looks packed. It looks gross. And Thorne goes into the chief's office, and he says the guy who was killed, it wasn't random. He was assassinated. And the chief is like, "Well, how do you know that?" He goes, "Well, nothing was stolen. The bodyguard just happened to be out, and all the cameras were off." And he goes, "It's the bodyguard." And he's like, "Are you sure?" He goes, "No, like from the start, he was like, it has to be the bodyguard." Just, I don't know, cop mentality thinking. Anyway, so the next scene is uh, we see like this. I don't know. It's like an outside marketplace, and it says, big letters on the wall, "Tuesday is Soylent Green Day." And you see people lining up, and people are lining up to get water. Like, they've all got these massive like 10-gallon
Jugs.
or 5-gallon jugs to they're lining up to fucking get water. Like, and they're lining up to get Soylent Green because it's free from the government and it's food. It gives you all your nutrition, whatever the fuck it is. And you're just like, fucking hell. Like, imagine standing in like 80, 90-degree heat, and sometimes people didn't even get what they wanted. Like, it's just like, I don't know, it's crazy. So anyway, the next scene, Thorne goes to the bodyguard's house because he has a suspicion that it's him. He goes to his house, he watches him leave, and then he goes up and he knocks on the door, and his girlfriend, the bodyguard's girlfriend, opens the door, and he's looking around. And before he knocks on the door, the girlfriend's like eating a jar of like strawberry jam, and so she hears a knock on the door, and she's like, shit. So she hides the jam, but she leaves the spoon out, and she looks at the spoon when Detective Thorne comes in, and she's like, fuck. And at that moment, you're like, well, why would you care? I mean, if the spoon is out, but we find out why she cares later. So anyway, he looks around the apartment. Oh, is what's his face here? Oh, no, he's not here. And he's looking around, he's snooping around. He goes, oh, just tell him I, came by. And oh, okay. So, and you kind of think to yourself, well, that was a stupid scene. But she looks down and she realizes he's stolen the spoon with the strawberry jam on it, and you're thinking, why the fuck would he do that? Why would he but then you find out later on why he stole it. And I just thought that was, I don't know, you could think of it as a stupid scene, as a scene that means nothing, but it means something later on. So what did you think about those scenes before I move on?
I thought that scene was very, very effective because when Thorne went to go see the old guy's bodyguard and you see the bodyguard's girlfriend eating a substance, I wasn't really sure what it was until the scene progressed, and I figured out, oh, it's just strawberry jam. I thought it was like some sort of illegal narcotic. But you know what? As the scene went on, I was like, I bet you he's going to steal the spoon, because all throughout this movie, the director has done something wonderful. He has done the thing that Dean and I preach on this podcast: show, don't tell. And as Thorne is going through the apartment, the director takes a second to move the camera to show the spoon, and I'm like, he wouldn't show the spoon if the spoon wasn't important. So when Thorne leaves the apartment and the girl and the guy's girlfriend is looking for the spoon is gone. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's why I showed the spoon. So I thought that was very, very interesting, and it also shows that Thorne is consistent throughout the entire movie, because no matter where Thorne goes, he's like a little kleptomaniac. He takes everything that he can get his hands on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, you're a cop. You're within your own right. Take your shit.
Yeah, exactly. The next scene I love because it's so heartbreaking. And it's Thorne and his flatmate Sol eating dinner. And it's like they're eating like a buffet of this beautiful food. But Sol puts down a plate in front of Thorne, and it's literally two leaves of lettuce. Two leaves of lettuce. That's it. That's all that's on the plate. And they sit down opposite each other and they feel like that. And you're just like, oh my fucking God. Like, it's actually like quite heartbreaking. And so they're eating the lettuce going, oh, this is so nice. And I'm like, I don't even know like what the fuck that would be like. And then Sol made some stew out of the beef, and it's literally like one little dollop each because there wasn't much of it. And they eat one apple each, and it's just like, and I like this scene because they're so happy and they're so joyous, and it's just like the simple things, like no matter what's going on around you, the simple things are making them happy. Eating one leaf of lettuce and eating a little bit of beef and an apple is making them so fucking happy. And I just loved that scene.
Yeah, my favorite part of the scene is actually before they start eating the buffet for them. They have plastic forks, right? Yeah. And Sal steps away for a second and he gets like this case. He opens up the case and he actually has physical silverware. And I'm like, that is so cool that he actually had silverware in the apartment, and he had enough foresight to know that maybe one time in his life he was going to actually eat a meal that actually was worth something, and he saved the good china for this meal. So I absolutely love that. The stew, when I was watching this movie today in preparation for this conversation, and he puts the stew on the plate, I didn't know what the fuck that was. So I'm like, what is that? Because to me it looked like dirt. But I had forgotten that you could make stew out of meat. So I'm like, oh, okay. Until just now when you said it.
Yeah. So the next scene is we find out a little bit of information about the guy that was killed. And we find out that he was actually on the board of directors for Soylent. And you're like, ooh, he was kind of important because Soylent, as Sol says, Soylent controls the food supply for half of the world. And so you're like, okay, if you're on the board of directors for Soylent, you're a pretty fucking important person. So you're thinking to yourself, okay, they killed him, but why would they kill him? Like, he must have done something, known something. Like, yeah, like he was a really quite important man. So, yeah, go.
No, I'm thinking. I was thinking throughout this movie before I did some things in my head. I was thinking that, this guy must have known something because big corporations like this who are willing to commit murder don't kill people all willy-nilly. They do it because of a reason. So
Yeah.
whatever reason they had to kill this guy has to be fucking important.
Oh, it has to be huge. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other, look, I really enjoyed this movie, but I really have one glaring issue with this movie. I was really disappointed that we didn't actually get to see a lot of the higher ups within Soylent, because I thought it would be really interesting to meet a couple of them or like 5 of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if we met them, I think that would have spoiled the twist at the end of the movie.
Yeah. No. Yeah. No. I agree. So after Thorne finds out this information, because Saul tells him, Saul has found out this information through research. He gives Saul the spoon that he stole that has the strawberry jam on it. And Saul puts the spoon in his mouth and he licks it. He's like, oh, strawberry jam. And he goes, damn, strawberries are like $150 a jar. And that's the whole thing. And so now Thorne goes, what kind of a bodyguard can afford $150 a jar for a jar of strawberry jam? Like, they get paid, but they don't get paid kind of that well. So what did you think about that? And $150 a jar for strawberry jam? Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, when we found out how expensive the jar jam was, I was like, wait a minute. Okay, this guy is a bodyguard, like you just said, but the only reason that somebody would give this bodyguard something that expensive is because this bodyguard probably agreed to do something for someone. So you got to be like, this bodyguard can't be all clean. So this bodyguard has to have some shady shit going on, because otherwise, how in the hell did he get something that expensive? So somebody had to have wanted something from him to give him something that expensive.
Yeah, exactly. So Thorne decides to go back to the fancy schmancy place to question Shirl on what she knows about the murdered guy. And when he goes in, she's got her, I don't know, hooker friends over. They look like they've just stepped out of like Austin Powers, the spy who shagged me.
Yeah,
they looked awesome. They looked awesome.
Yeah. The fashion in this movie is great. It's loud.
It's great. It's so great.
It's colorful, and it's very 70s. Also, the way that this movie is directed wouldn't pass the certain agendas today, because some of the shots that they use in this movie, I'm like, oh wow, this movie could not be made today. Because it's just great. It's just great. I'll just say that much. It's great.
It is. It's great. So anyway, he walks in and he's like, "Can we talk somewhere private?" She's like, "Yeah, let's go in the bedroom." And so he starts questioning her, like, how well did you know him? And he's like, oh, she's like, no, not really well. And he's like, yeah, but you knew him for 3 years. And she's like, yeah, but like, he didn't really talk to me about stuff. Like, I'm just like his maid or whatever the fuck she is. And then she starts like undoing her hair and taking her dress off. And I'm like, what is she doing? What's going on? And then she like gets naked and gets under the covers. And then he starts taking his clothes off. And you're like, what? What the fuck? And you're like, wait, what?
What?
And then it's kind of at this point that you realize, oh, she's a call girl, right? But it still doesn't make sense because it wasn't implied that, like, he just came over to question her, but maybe that's just in her thinking because that's her job and that's what she does. It's like, oh, I sleep with men, and if he wants information, obviously I have to give him something in return. So it didn't make sense, but it kind of did make sense because of her mentality. And then he gets undressed and he gets into bed and they start kissing, and you're like, oh, that wasn't, like, I don't know, it wasn't, it was random. It was random.
No, actually, that scene did not make that much sense for me because even if look, Thorne seems like a good guy, and he seems like a very upright guy, except for the fact that he steals everything that he gets his hands on. But we can forget that because of his social class. But for him to go into a situation and hook and question someone and expect that individual to get naked and have sex with him just because is extremely unprofessional. So that scene didn't work for me because I'm like, no matter who you are, he didn't even fucking ask her. He didn't even ask her. All he said was get in bed, and that's it. And she just went along and did it. I understand what her job is. I understand what her life has been like, but she's got to have some self-respect for herself, which she does later on in the movie. But still, that scene didn't work for me that much because I'm like, really? It just felt so weird.
Yeah, it was weird. But again, like, he also calls her a piece of furniture. So he doesn't respect her. He doesn't care. He's just like, well, you know, I mean, he does eventually care about her, but
He does. He will.
Yeah, he will. But in that scene, that scene was a bit weird. So anyway, the manager of the building, or as I call him, like, the pimp of the girls.
That guy is such a dick.
I know. So he comes in and he sees all the girls sitting there, they're smoking, they're drinking, and he just starts basically beating the shit out of them. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute. And then he says, and then Thorne emerges from the bedroom and he fucking confronts this guy. And he says, and the manager says, you know, they're breaking regulation by being here. And you're like, what? And then that's when you realize, oh, so they're call girls from the other apartments, and they're not supposed to be there because there's regulation and blah blah blah. And the girls basically they all leave, and Thorne confronts him and basically tells him, fucking stop what you're doing. And if you do it again, I'm going to fucking like come back and beat the shit out of you, basically. Which is good character development because then you're on Thorne's side. You're like, oh, he's a good guy. Like, he's not a fuckwit. He's not a fucking rapist. He doesn't beat up women. And when he sees it happening, he's like, no, you're not going to do this. You're not going to come in and fucking beat up women just for sitting around talking. Like, no, fuck off. So I liked how he kind of came in and told the manager, you know what? Fuck you.
Thorne, I think, is a product of his environment. I don't necessarily think Thorne is a bad guy for what he just did, but he is a product of the environment that he's in. Also, kind of funny, when the pimp came in and saw the other girls from the other apartments in there, and Thorne came out like right away, I'm like, dude, Thorne, you must have no stamina because you just got into it with the girl in the other room and you just come out right now? What the hell, man?
Yeah, but we don't know how much time has passed.
Right, that's true.
It could have been an hour, it could have been half an hour, we don't know.
Yeah, but also I really like the scene because when Thorne comes to investigate the guy's murder originally, that's when he first meets the pimp of the building.
Yeah.
And this motherfucking guy is talking his fucking ear off constantly. He's like one of those guys that you meet and you're like, this guy wants to be friends with this other person so desperately, he won't fucking shut the fuck up. So I'm really glad that in this instance, Thorne put him in his place.
Yeah. So all the girls leave, and Thorne goes to leave, and Cheryl wants him to stay. She goes, please stay. I don't want to be alone. And he's like, well, I don't want to stay. I've got a job to do. I can't stay. And so she tries to convince him, and he's like, nope, I'm not staying. I'm going. And then she says, you can have a shower. And he stops and he turns, and she's like, there's hot water. And he's like, because obviously he doesn't fucking have a shower. He doesn't know. He's like, I don't know when the last time I fucking had a shower was. And he's like, and this is so funny. He looks at her and goes, can we turn on the air conditioning? Like all sexy. And she's like, hell yeah, we can turn on the aircon. And he's like,
Oh,
Okay, I'll stay. And I was like, oh my God. Again, the little luxuries. Um,
also,
and
al-
yeah.
also, I just want to throw this bit in there. She also says that she'll give him a rub down after they take a shower.
Oh yeah, and that sweetens the deal.
Yeah.
That sweetens the deal. So, she tells him that because when he was questioning her, the only thing she said was basically he went to church twice and he spoke to a priest. That's it. I don't know what he said. He spoke to a priest, whatever. This is the church he went to. That's all the information she knows. So after that scene, he goes to the church. And well, actually, when he goes to the church, he sees, and it's really heartbreaking, he sees a kid that's like maybe like 4 or 5 years old, sitting out the front, kind of crying. And it's this kid is tethered to this, what I assume is the mother, and the mother's just died. And it's heartbreaking just because of that. But it's also heartbreaking because Thorn just unties the tether that they've got. They've just got rope attached to them kind of so they don't lose each other. And he just lifts up the child, walks into the church and gives it to the nun, like so nonchalantly. But the reason he does that is because, like you said, he's a product of his environment. He must see that every single fucking day. And when you see something every day, you get desensitized to it. Like it's not that you don't care, it's just that you've seen it so many times. And again, it's like character development for him. Like, he's not an asshole. It's just that, and it shows this happens a lot. This happens every day, that he's just like, he's another kid. He's this person, he's that person. Like, I just don't have emotion for this anymore. So when he goes into the church, he finds a priest. And this priest is the coolest looking priest I've ever seen. He's a black guy, he's got an afro. He looks like he's from the 70s, but he just looks like a fucking awesome priest. But he's sweating. And he's kind of, it looks like he's taken some sort of narcotic, but he hasn't. And he's sort of looking around everywhere, and he doesn't really, and Thorne's trying to ask him questions. And every time he answers is like in a riddle. And you're like, what the fuck is up with this guy? And so he's asking him again, he's questioning him. He's like, yeah, I remember that guy, the rich guy, Simonson, I think his name is. Yeah. He, yeah. And he just doesn't know what to say. And Thorne's like, did he confess something to you or not? And he's like, yeah. But he won't tell him. And he just looks fucked up. He looks fucked up out of his mind, but you know he's not on drugs. He's just fucked up because of the situation. And he won't tell him. He goes, what did he confess to you? Like, he's dead. You can tell me. No, not telling you. And so you figure, fuck, what did this guy confess to this priest? Is it really that bad that it fucked this guy up? Like, yeah. So anyway, your thoughts.
No, but here's the thing. The priest has to know that if he tells Thorn, Thorn is dead. And the priest has to know if he opens his mouth, he's fucking dead too. So he has to know this. But I have a problem with that scene, because when Thorn goes in to talk to this priest, Thorn has to know that whatever this guy knew, he has to know that it's bad. And for him to think that for Thorn to think that nobody's going to ask any questions as he goes through his investigation, that is really, really uh, um, uh, naive on his part. So I don't know what Thorn was hoping to get out of this priest. I don't know if he was hoping to get the absolute truth, because here's the thing. No matter what you tell your priests in real life, priests are sworn to a level of secrecy with people. So I don't know. I don't know what Thorne was hoping to get out of this priest, but uh, that's why the scene didn't really. I thought that it could have been done better. The other thing that I thought was very, very affecting was when, before Thorne went into the church, when we see the little boy tethered to his mother, dead on the ground. I was like, this is awful. That's just atrocious. But again, the director does a great job of of physically showing us how bad it is and not telling us. And that is just great storytelling in my in my estimation.
Yeah, look, I think Thorne didn't think it was going to be that bad. I think he thought maybe it's money laundering, maybe he slept with one of the other directors' wives. Like, do you know what I mean? Like something. People kill people over a lot less than what this guy was killed over. So he probably didn't think it was anything that fucking bad.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. But Thorne at this point knows that this guy that the murder of the guy that he's investigating, he knows at this point that guy was pretty high up in the structure of the government, right?
Yeah.
So if he knows that, he should have an inclination that whatever this guy knows and whatever this guy said to this priest has to be bad. I don't know how. For me, it's impossible for Thorne to think this is something petty. So I don't know. It just quite didn't work. It just didn't fit for me
right.
the way it did for you.
Yeah, but in real life, like if that happened in real life, which it does, like the detective still has to investigate. Like they still have to do their job. They can't just leave it. Like they have to know.
No, yeah.
So he was just, you know, I think he knew it was bad, but I didn't think he knew it was what it fucking was, which is like so fucking bad.
Yeah. No. What it is terrifying.
It's terrifying. So moving on, he goes back to the police station and he goes and talks to his chief, and his chief says to him, "I want you to sign this piece of paper that says it was a random attack and not an assassination." And Thorne goes, "But it was an assassination." He goes, "Yeah, but I need you to sign this anyway." And he looks at his chief and he goes, "They got to you." And he goes, "Man, come on, just fucking sign it. I don't want any shit, you know." And he's like, "No, I'm not covering it up. Like, I'm not." He goes, "I'm not going to fucking lie. Like, if they're coming to you trying to cover it up, like, that just motivates Thorne to find out what the fuck is going on and how they got to the chief and what they offered him and all this shit." He's like, "No, I'm not fucking doing this." And so the next scene, the big corporate dudes are having a secret fucking rendezvous meeting, and they're concerned about the priest. They're like, "Look, we know he told the priest the confession, the secret that nobody should know. Will the priest talk?" And obviously the priest is not going to talk, but they can't take that risk. So they're talking about what they're going to do about the priest. And they're also talking that they're fucking pissed because they find out that Thorne's not going to drop the case and he's going to pursue it. And so they're trying to figure out what the fuck are we going to do about this. Thoughts?
I really do not like Thorne's boss, because Thorne's boss is just a fucking weakling. I thought that he was the most unlikable police chief ever. But again, we have to understand that these people are doing the best they can with the awful situation that they're in. So I don't blame him for bending the knee to this evil corporation and doing what they wanted, because he has to know, if he has to think that if he doesn't do what this corporation wants, they can come down on his head. And they can ruin his career and Thorne's career, and they can ruin everybody's career, because these people are basically like a dictatorship. They run everything.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
And also I love when one of the big wigs of this corporation is having the conversation with this hitman, and the hitman is sort of, explaining to him, like he just said, Thorne is not going to drop this case. He already talked to the priest. What do you want me to do? And I love that this guy, this bigwig, doesn't say it outright. He just says, "I want you to do what you do and just get it over with." He doesn't say it. But the hitman knows exactly what this guy wants. And I just love that. I love that these guys have so much power, but they're still afraid to say what they really want to say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the next scene is the bodyguard. He walks into the church, and he walks into the confession booth with the priest that the other guy confessed to, the black Afro priest. And he says, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been 6 months since my last confession." And then he pulls out a pistol and shoots him in the head, point blank, or dead. He's got a silencer on, so nobody knows he did it. And then you're like, whoa, like what the fuck did this guy tell this priest, that they're fucking killing a fucking priest? Like, Jesus Christ, that's fucking, yeah. Did you find that scene, did you know that was going to happen, or were you just like shocked?
No, at this point, I had pretty much put together some theories in my head, and I knew from the previous scene when this guy was talking to one of the head up when this guy was talking to one of the heads up in Soylent. I knew that what this guy wanted him to do wasn't going to be good. But at this point, I already knew that these guys were so desperate to to keep the civilization in control that they would do anything. So I knew that murder was not off the table. I do want to say one thing though. After this guy kills the priest, I really wish that the director would have held on the scene for a minute and sort of had an extra come in, scream, and then cut to the next scene. Because I thought it would be really cool for like to hear a scream or to hear a reaction from somebody who stepped into the confessional, wanting to talk to the priest, and found him dead there. I thought that would have been really cool. But the director didn't do that. He just went on to the next scene.
So now we're at the marketplace, which is like an outside massive, like where the people were standing in line getting water. And now you see a little bit more of the markets. There's people. There's basically like a bartering system that's going on, and you see people selling shoes made from tires, which is actually quite fucking ingenious. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of fun. And they're selling Soylent Yellow, which we now know is made from soybeans, and people are buying bags and bags of Soylent Green because Tuesday is Soylent Green Day. And Thorne is there, and he's got this like riot helmet on, and you realize he's been demoted to riot police at the markets because he's basically gone against what his chief wants, and they've demoted him. And basically he's there to keep the peace of the marketplace. So there's one woman that gets her Soylent, whatever, green, yellow, red, whatever it was, and she's screaming, it's a ripoff. Like, I'm getting half of what I used to get. Like, and she's just screaming, it's a ripoff, people should rise up. And then what happens? 2 fucking cops come and arrest her just for saying something basically against the government, right? Which is, again, scary because that's not too fucking far off.
No, but I was like, no, but when this scene was going on, when I was watching the movie today, and when that lady stepped out against the price of Soylent Green and other Soylent products, and she got hauled away by the police, I'm like, oh, that sounds familiar because I know somebody who lives in the government that would do something like that.
Oh yeah, and they have,
Yeah.
So that was that was blast from the past.
Yeah, but I do just want to say one thing though. The riot gear helmets that the police wear, they look like old style 50s football helmets.
Yeah, I know, gridiron helmets. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, they do. I thought the same. So where are we? Yep, screaming it's a ripoff. So a policeman gets on the speaker and he says, there's no more Soylent Green, we've run out. And there's still hundreds of people waiting to get their Soylent Green. And the people start fucking rioting, which rightly so. It's the only food like the government provides the food and they can't even provide enough of it for everybody. I mean, it's just so fucked. So they start rioting, and I actually chuckled at this. So they've got something called scoop trucks, which look like construction trucks, and they've got a big scoop on the front. And what they do is they go through this crowd and they scoop people up and they just like put them in the back of the truck like they're dirt, like they're garbage. Like, it's really distressing. Like, I giggled, but I was like, oh my God, like the government does not give a fuck. It's like people are rioting. We don't give a fuck. And again, its similarities to what has happened in the last couple of years is actually terrifying because similar stuff happened. And I'm just like, Jesus, this movie could be like, I mean, if people had watched this movie before everything happened within the last like 2 to 3 years, like, and then it happened, like this movie was like a precursor to like what is going to happen. Like, it was just all these trucks like lifting these people up, putting them in the back like garbage. Like, it was just like, it was fucked. It was so fucked.
Yeah, I know. And when that happened, I'm like, wait, when the sweepers come out, because they call them sweepers, they don't necessarily call them garbage trucks. But it's so distressing because by this scene, not only seeing the poor woman being hauled away because she started complaining about the prices of Soylent Green, But the fact that these government people are actually sweeping up people and putting them into garbage trucks, I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, why aren't they killing these people? Because if the government doesn't care about these people, which they obviously don't, why not just kill them or beat them to death? Why are they sweeping them up and taking them, putting them into the garbage trucks? Are they taking them somewhere? So when that happened, I'm like, wait a minute, my theory might be right. And then I just said, okay, if it is what I think it is, it's going to be amazing. Off you go.
So so after that, so Thorn is there and he's kind of trying to keep the peace, not working out for him. And the guy with the carpet crowbar, he's there with a pistol, and he's trying to kill Thorn, but obviously he can't. There's people running everywhere. He tries to shoot at him, and Thorn is like sees him, and he's like, "Oh fuck!" So, but eventually they get into a scuffle, and then he pushes him, or he gets the crowbar guy gets pushed under one of the scooping trucks and gets like smushed
So
by
stupid.
the scoop.
It's so stupid.
And I was like, oh,
So
okay,
stupid.
cool.
No, I'm sorry. I just want to.
Yeah.
I just want to just say one thing here.
Yeah.
If this guy wanted to kill Thorn, why in the hell didn't he force his way through the people, and why didn't he get close to him? For God's sakes, like what purpose? What purpose does it serve to shoot wildly into a fucking crowd, hoping that you're going to hit the guy that you want to get? That was so stupid. That was the one. That was the one part in the script where I called,
Yeah.
oh bullshit. You know, the writer of this movie has constructed this movie in such a prestige and such a methodical way so far that I was really disappointed that he sort of turned off his brain for this one section of this movie because it was so dumb.
Yeah, I just thought that's. I know. I agree. I was like, nah, that's pretty fucking stupid. So then Thorn goes to the bodyguard's house, and the bodyguard opens the door, and he basically beats the shit out of him. They beat the shit out of each other, and he tells him, if anybody else tails him, I'm gonna fucking come back and I'm gonna fucking kill you. Because he knows the bodyguard is involved. He knows, he doesn't have proof, but he knows it. So he beats the shit out of the bodyguard, and he's just basically like, tells him, do not have anybody tail me. I'm going to fucking kill you. The next scene pushes the story forward a little bit more. So the older guy's Saul, he goes to kind of like his lawyer friends. They're in like kind of like a derelict library. They're a bunch of researchers. So they're very they're smart. They're intelligent. So he goes to
judges. Sorry.
I thought they were lawyers.
Judges.
Yeah, but they may have been judges. Yes, I wasn't sure on that. Yeah.
Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Sal brings up the case. And,
yes.
And the judges, the lawyers say, okay, this sounds all good, but in order for us to move against the company that runs Soylent Green, you have to get us proof because we can't do shit without proof.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, because if we, I don't know if they say this, but they certainly imply this. If we come, if we come with certain accusations against Soylent Green, they're gonna kill us.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, I think that's what it was. I think I just fucking, I don't know, my brain was somewhere else. But yeah, I think you're right on that. So, Saul's reading a piece of paper and that they gave him. And he's basically like, he doesn't believe what he's reading. And we don't know what he's reading. But he goes, I don't believe it. And the people there say, no, it's true. And he asks, but why are they doing this? And she says something interesting. She says, because it's easier. More to the point, it's expedient. And you're like, what? And you still go, what are they doing? Like, what is easy? What is expedient? And then she says what you just said, but they need proof of what the Soylent Corporation are actually doing, or otherwise they cannot move forward. So whatever this is, whatever Saul is reading off the piece of paper, this is the secret that the rich dude got killed over. This is the secret. This is what he confessed to the priest. And so now you go, okay, it's big, but now it's really fucking big. So what did you think about that? Or yeah, what did you think about it?
I thought that was great. I thought that was absolutely great. But my one problem with the thing is, why would the Soylent Green Corporation allow something that big to be held in a public library? If if the Soylent Green Corporation was going to do something so horrific, why wouldn't they burn it out of the public record to make it that much harder for anybody who may be asking questions about it to find? I understand that it's kind of writer's convenience, but still, I was like, he found this a little bit too easily because it was just like lying. Like, didn't one of the judges give the smoking gun to Saul, or did he find it?
So when Thorne was stealing all that stuff, he stole research books about the Soylent Company.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, he gave them from the rich dude's house. Now, he how do I put this? So nobody really knows how to read, right? Only rich people know how to read. And Saul knows how to read because he's old school, but Thorne doesn't know how to read. So that's why they didn't erase it, because nobody knows how to fucking read.
Oh, okay. I forgot. I forgot that key part of information. Okay.
Yeah, so this book isn't available. It was in the rich guy's apartment. Like, it was supposed to be, like, nobody takes it out. Nobody can read it anyway. So that's why they thought. And you know what? It just goes to show, like, when you're a corporation or an elite, like, you're so cocky. You're just like, well, they're never going to catch me. I'll just fucking leave it. But yeah, I agree. Like, they should have, like, just in case, like, destroyed, like, all the evidence of anything. But they didn't think anybody would read it because nobody can, fucking read. So anyway, Thorne gets home to his shitty apartment and he finds a note from Saul that says, Thorne, I'm going home, Saul. And then Thorne knows exactly what he's done, and Thorne guns it out of the apartment. And now we see where Saul is. He's walked into this huge, it kind of looks like an auditorium. He's standing in line. It's very, very white. It's very clean. We don't know where he is. Very sanitary. We don't know where he is. He goes up to the counter and the man at the counter asks him a few questions. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite music? And he says, my favorite color is orange. My favorite music is, classical. And then Saul says, I get the full 20 minutes, don't I? And the guy goes, of course. And you're like, what? 20 minutes of what? So Saul gets led into a room with a comfy bed, and he lies in the bed and the covers are pulled up and there's two people standing there and they're giving him drinks and the lighting in the room is orange, which is his favorite color. And you're still like, what? So the people leave the room. The people waiting on him, they leave the room, and then they press a button on the side of the bed and they leave. And a big screen in front of him starts playing, like a projector. And it's these beautiful images of flowers, of nature, of sea creatures, of underwater, forests, lakes, oceans, like just everything that we can see today just stepping out of our house. Like, he was watching all these beautiful images. Thorne gets there. He runs in. He's like, I'm a cop. Where the fuck is he? And he sees him from a viewing room, so behind glass. And he's like, I want to speak to him. And so the guy goes, all right, so presses the speaker button. And he says, Saul, I'm here. And then Saul says, I've lived too long. I love you, Thorne. And you're sitting there like, is this like a, wait a minute, it's like a euthanasia thing? Like, is it? Like, and you're just like, wait, what the fuck? And then it's such a beautiful scene because Thorne is watching these beautiful images of a world he never knew, a world he's never seen. He sees deers running. He sees mountaintops. I mean, he sees buffalo. He sees all this rivers, oceans. Like, and Saul says, I told you. Because Thorne never believed him. I told you. And then Thorne has got these tears in his eyes, and he's like, I never knew this existed. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I know. And he's just like crying at all these beautiful images of what the world used to look like. And there's nothing like that now, but Saul remembers it. So, and then Saul says, I have something to tell you. But we don't hear what he tells him. But you see his face. You see Thorne's face drop. And he's just like, what? And Saul says, you have to prove it. Tell me you have to prove it. And then Saul's eyes close, and then he dies.
Did They don't actually close. They stay rigid, I think.
Oh, they stay open, right? So, but he dies. So the two people that were waiting on him, they come in. They're all dressed in white robes, and they cover him, and then they wheel him out of the room. But before I go any further, thoughts on that scene?
This is my favorite scene of the movie. You know why?
Oh yeah,
Because since I've been an adult and since my brain grew into my head, I have been an advocate for people who are terminally ill to have the option to do euthanasia. I'm like, if people know that they're going to die and they have no other recourse, why have them suffer? If they want to die, let them. Give them the
I
option to do
agree.
that.
I agree.
It's their choice. And guess
their
what?
body,
Guys?
their choice. I agree.
Yeah, and guess what? The only way that this option will be available is if you have no other choice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, before a person asks for this, I would run just a quick psychological, maybe a test to see that they were in their right mind. You know.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. But I absolutely love that this society has that. Now, with that being
Yeah.
said, I don't love why they have it for real, which we're going to find out here in a couple moments. But I love the way that the scene is structured. That is a big building, and really, the hat on the ground as to what this building is. When Saul first goes into the building, you notice that there are no young people in the building. There are a bunch of old people everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this can't be like a nursing home. And as Saul, fills out the paperwork and these two people in white robes, I'm like, this is like before he was let into the room, I was like, wait a minute. And I didn't say it because I didn't want to say it, because I thought if I would have said it, I'm like, watch, it's gonna be something else. And when it turned out to be what it was, I kid you not, I'm not lying. I stood up and applauded. I was like, oh my
wow.
God, that's great.
Oh wow.
I absolutely love this. And also, but my favorite moment of this scene is when Charlton Heston speaks to Saul and he sees the images on the projector of things that he's never seen. Like you mentioned, he sees deers, he sees oceans, he sees flowers. And the emotion that Charlton Heston just gives in this one moment is just beautiful. I love this scene for so many fucking reasons. It's great.
Yeah, it's my favorite too.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's my favorite scene of the entire movie. And that's saying something, because what we're about to get is fucking earth-shattering.
Yeah, because you realize, and it's even sadder because you realize why Saul did that. Because he's the proof. He knew that you were never going to get proof, but if he left the note for Thorn, he knew Thorn would come and get him. He knew he would speak to Thorn before he died, and he knew that if he told Thorn, that Thorn was going to do exactly what he did now. So he basically died to get Thorn the proof that he needed to stop what was happening, which is sad, but it's also, a testament to the character and the type of person that Saul actually is.
It's also I'm sorry if I could just say one more thing here.
Yeah,
it's also extremely noble.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because it's a giant sacrifice. Because like you just said, if Saul didn't do this, there's no way in hell anybody would have. There's no way in hell anybody would have believed Thorn. He would have had to turn over heaven and earth, and in that process, he would have probably died anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So when they wheel out the body of Saul, Thorn runs out of the building and he runs down a little kind of alleyway and he runs into a basement area. And he sees the bodies of the people who have just passed away in the building. They're all covered in white sheets. Again, it's so disturbing, being loaded into the back of garbage trucks like fucking trash. It's so disturbing. It's like, whatever, you're a body, nobody cares. It's like, there's just no respect there at all. So anyway, Thorn basically sneaks onto one of the trucks. He climbs to the top of the truck because he wants to know where the fuck these bodies are being taken. Like, he never even thought about it before, like everybody else living in the society. They don't care. They just want their food and whatever. They don't care where the bodies go. So, yep. Do you want to say something?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was just thinking about something, but I can't say that.
Oh, okay.
You gotta get there.
Okay. So the truck enters the waste disposal plant where we know the bodies are taken. And he jumps off the truck and he sees them unloading the bodies from the trucks. And they're all getting dumped into one big massive hole. And it just looks so creepy. It looks creepy. It looks like a horror movie because these bodies are... Yeah.
It looks like a massive grave. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, but it's like all the bodies are wrapped in like these white sheets. It just looks fucking creepy as shit. And you're like, oh, like the garbage trucks back up to this massive hole in the ground and just lift up the thing and all the bodies just come tumbling out into this big hole. And you're like, oh, that's just so fucked. Like, it's so fucking disturbing. And so he goes, okay, so he walks around I think he walks down some stairs and walks around the side and he sees into the plant. And he sees the bodies on a conveyor belt. So obviously when they go into the hole, they go into a conveyor belt one by one covered in the white sheets. And then he's like, okay. And then he follows the conveyor belt and the conveyor belt leads into this big pool area. So they just get dumped into this massive, massive round pool, like a pool of water. And he's like, what the fuck? And you're looking at it like, what? Like, still wrapped in the fucking sheets. And then he goes, all right. So he keeps going on. And then he goes to the other side of the pool where the conveyor belt is coming out. And he looks at the conveyor belt and he sees the Soylent Green cubes. And he looks back and he looks forward and then it fucking dawns on him. He realizes what the fuck is going on. And you can see in his face that he doesn't believe it because he keeps looking back going, no, that can't be right. No, like, wait a minute. Did I miss a section? Was there a section in between? Like, wait, how are they bringing bodies in here but making Soylent Green in the same factory? Like, you could see all this shit ticking in his head. And then someone spots him and he basically escapes to find people at his place waiting for him, and they're trying to kill him because they know he's seen it, they know he knows. So he calls his chief and he goes, this is where I am, but he's running away, people are shooting at him, and he runs into the church and the bodyguard is there that's shooting at him. And Thorn gets shot as he's in the church, but he grabs a knife and he stabs the bodyguard. And they kind of have a tussle. And then Thorn stabs him. And then you see his chief run in and fucking Thorn is like bleeding out on the floor. And his chief runs in and Thorn looks at him and he can't even talk. And Chief's like, come on, we need an ambulance. We need someone to fucking come in here. And Thorn goes, I have proof. And his chief is like, a proof of what? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're shot. Listen, you just don't talk. And then he says it. He says, I have proof. Soylent Green is made out of people. And his chief just looks at him and he says it again. Soylent Green is made out of people. And basically that's it. That's the end. That's the end. Fucking ends. That's it. And you're sitting there like, fuck. What?
Yeah. At the point where, Saul is dead and we see him put onto the garbage truck and we see Charlton Heston, get on one of the garbage trucks and go to the waste disposal. At that point, I knew where they were going. And every second I was like, yes, you gotta get. I was so excited for him to find out what the hell Soylent Green was, because I, in truth, had figured it out like half an hour ago. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot wait until he gets there. And you're right, his reaction when he sees the bodies being thrown into this vat, and when he looks at and when he looks at the conveyor belt and he goes, conveyor belt, bodies, conveyor belt, bodies. I was like, get there. And when he finally gets there, the look on Charlton Heston's face is absolutely priceless. It is great. It is a look of non-belief and horror. It is just wonderfully, wonderfully acted on his part. Here's the thing, though. When he goes, when he escapes, as he's going through the plant, I'm like, why aren't there security cameras everywhere in this plant? Like, how do the Soylent Green people know that it was Charlton Heston's character who invaded the plant? How would they know? How would they know that? Because as Charlton Heston's character is walking through the plant, there are no cameras anywhere, or we don't see any cameras anywhere. So I thought that was a little bit of a writer's convenience thing. And
no,
also,
I don't think. Sorry, I don't think they knew that he saw. I think they're trying to kill him because he won't drop the issue.
Oh, okay. So you think that they're trying to kill him for a completely different reason?
Because they've been trying to kill him for half the movie.
Right.
Because they're scared he will find proof and he will find out what is going on. I think that's what it is.
The other thing. The final moments of this film, when Charlton Heston repeats it, he says, Soylent Green is people. Soylent Green is people. I want to ask you a question. What is to prevent this corporation from killing everybody in this church and from killing Charlton Heston? So I believe that when this movie ends, I believe that they don't take Charlton Heston to get cured. He dies and he becomes Soylent Green. And to cover up this whole thing, this organization, I mean, this is conjecture at this point, but this organization kills everyone in that church and Charlton Heston's police. And they cover it all up. And everything continues the way it does. Now, that is conjecture, but what do you think about that?
I think this movie is great. The only thing I didn't like, I like the way that they ended it, where he's like, Soylent Green is people, and then it ends. But what I would have liked is a little bit more, like, does the corporation get taken down? Like, do they? So I had conjecture as well. I would have loved us for him to realize that maybe halfway through the movie, and then the other half of the movie is him trying to figure out how the fuck do we take this corporation down. And then once he's taken the corporation down, start to rebuild society, start to figure out, okay, how, because obviously there's no more Soylent. So like, okay, do you know what I mean? Like making society a little bit better. I would have liked that. Listen, if there's any movie that needs a remake, it's this one. Because it could be done so fucking well, and I don't know why they don't do it.
No, I was, as writers often do. I mean, you can attest to this, Dean, because I'm sure you have done this. We sit and we watch old movies, and we sit there sometimes going, I could make this into a reboot, and that would make it awesome.
Oh yeah, I do that a lot.
And I kid you not, as I was sitting there watching this fantastic movie, scaring the shit out of me, having theories fly left and right on my brain, I'm like, I could totally remake this, but not into a movie. I could make this into a miniseries. And I would have gone down the path that you just suggested. I would have had Charlton Heston's character figure out what was happening midway through the movie, and have the rest of the episodes have him trying to figure out how he's going to fix this and how he's going to hold the Soylent Green Corporation accountable. So, miniseries, Soylent Green, 10 episodes, maybe 10 to 12 episodes. We'll do 10 episodes. 10 episodes, miniseries, Soylent Green on either HBO, because they've got good writers, or Amazon, because they also have good writiters. Anything else you can piss, or maybe Paramount, but honestly, like, that would be fucking awesome. So if anybody from HBO is listening, we're here. we're here and we're ready. We're ready to do it. Actually, you know what? Hey, HBO, we'll write it together.
Yeah, we'll write it together. That's it. We're ready. We got it.
Also, I like the 10 episode idea, but I would actually go for 13.
Okay.
A little bit more. Just a little bit more.
Yep.
But with that being said, I do have a question for you. How do
Mm.
you think society got this bad? Like, what do you think? I mean, I'm not gonna. I mean, I don't want you to give me a thesaurus, but just give me a really short, concise answer. How do you
Like
think society got this bad?
like in the movie?
Yeah, in the movie, yeah.
Well, it said that the scientists killed all the animals, killed everything in the ocean, killed the soil. They couldn't grow anything. They couldn't do anything, and so the government had millions and millions of people. And it's like, well, what do we do with people? Like, it got that bad because the government don't give a shit. And even if the scientists did poison stuff, like they could remake it. They could. You know what I mean? They've got genetics of literally every single animal. Why couldn't they just breed more? You know, like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Right,
they could
right.
bring society back, but why would they want to? They've got the people eating out of their hand. They've got
Yeah,
complete control of the people.
yeah, they've got all the power.
They've got all the power, which again is like disturbing because I feel like
Right.
Jesus Christ, it's like heading that way.
Yeah, it's tremendously disturbing. All right, guys. So with that, you think I was going to end the show? I'm not going to end the show. Dean, would you like to go to your trivia?
Sure. So the first trivia I've got is the scene where they're eating like the lettuce and the stew and stuff. That was actually not in the script. The director told Charlton Heston to just like ad lib it. So he just told him like, look, I want to film a scene of you eating it. Let's just do it. And the whole scene was ad libbed. The whole scene. And I just thought it was such a good scene. What a good director to be like, you know what, we need this in here because it brought a little bit of light to a movie that was very, very quite dark. So I enjoyed that a lot. The next piece is, sorry, did you want to say something?
No, I was just clearing my throat. I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
Excuse me.
Excuse you.
Excuse you. Off you go.
All right. So the actor that played Sol, the old guy, he was actually almost entirely deaf. So he couldn't hear the director yelling cut. So every time the director would yell cut, he'd keep going on with the scene. He'd have to have someone to come up to him and be like, no, cut. The scene is, done. And he couldn't hear his co-star's dialogue. So they had to film so many takes so he would get a rhythm of when he's supposed to talk. Okay, but he actually couldn't hear anything.
Hold up. First of all, why the fuck?
Because I can't remember what his name is, but he's actually like an actor. So they really wanted him for this role. But when they hired him, they didn't realize he was almost deaf. I think it just got progressively worse. Okay,
but here's the thing. Why didn't they have a PA put a thing in his ear, physically telling him, okay, we're going to start now, and actually giving him verbal cues through an earpiece in his ear? Because he can't hear. Even with the earpiece in his ear?
Yeah, he can't hear. He's almost entirely deaf. Can't hear.
All right.
Yeah, so I thought that was good. But also the actor that played Saul, he was actually, I think he had cancer. He was actually dying.
Wow.
While they were filming that movie, and Charlton Heston knew this, and so every day Charlton Heston would show up, he would give him cheeses, wines, like all this expensive stuff, because this was his last movie, and he actually died 6 months before the movie released.
So he never got to see
never
it.
Saw it. Nope, never saw it.
Well, oh my God, the euthanasia scene now has so much more weight.
I know.
Wow. Oh my God.
So. Yeah, my final piece of dialogue, which I thought is the funniest, is there is actually a real Soylent company that make meal replacement drinks and green Soylent crackers, right?
Oh my God, I want one.
I know, me too, right? So, but the funny thing is, Canada actually banned the replacement drinks in 2017, citing there's too much extreme fat content. Right? But then Twitter blew up and went, oh, you're bullshitting. It's because it's made from people.
Oh my God.
That's why you banned it, because it's fucking people. Which I thought was quite fucking... Twitter people are quite fucking funny. But that's it. That's my trivia. I thought that was quite funny.
The last one, I think that piece of trivia was your best piece of trivia this whole season. I thought that was amazing.
Uh-huh.
But all right, guys, that pretty much does it for this edition of the Mixtape Podcast. Listen, guys, If any of you want to get in contact with us, if you have questions, comments, concerns, you can email us at themixtapepod@aol.com. If we get any emails on there, I will answer you, and we will probably give you a shout out on our beloved show here. But if you guys are kind enough to come back next week we'll be covering the horror classic from 1978, Halloween, directed by the legendary director. Oh my God!
Oh my God! What the? Did you
oh
forget
my-
what the movie was? The legendary 1978 movie. It's
know, I said
Halloween, and it's directed by. I don't fucking know who it's directed by.
John Carpenter.
Oh wow,
Oh
that's
my
the.
God.
I don't know, man. Listen.
Oh,
Should
my
I
brain is
keep
frozen.
letting you host or what? Are you pretty much done hosting?
Oh my God, I'm so fun.
Yeah, you're fucking done. You're pretty done.
My brain is fine. All right,
So fun.
guys. So, thank you so much for listening, and until next time, as I often say, if someone is kind enough to make you a mixtape one day, that must truly mean that they love you.
The Mixtape Podcast is a Balloonhead Productions presentation.